This video will summarize Habit 3, Put First Things First, from the book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. To start out the chapter, the author asks us to write down an answer to these following questions. What one thing could you do, something that you aren't doing right now, that if you did it on a regular basis, would make a tremendous positive difference in your personal life? And the other question, what one thing in your business or professional life would bring similar results? So really think about these questions and write them down because they'll be important as we move through this habit. So habit 3 is the second physical creation. So this focuses on the exercise of independent will towards becoming principle-centered, really just doing those things. And so habit 1 and 2 are really prerequisites for this. So the power of independent will, it's basically doing the things that you need to do. So the ability to act rather than be acted upon. You're carrying out your plans. So the degree to which we develop our independent will is measured by our personal integrity, which is defined by the value we place in ourselves. So we're walking and, we walk our talk. So as mentioned before in the other habits, effective management is putting first things first and the discipline to do so. And then leadership decides what are the first things. And in a study, E.M. Gray found that the denominator of successful people is this habit, putting first things first. So independent will is the power to do something even when you don't want to do it. It's acting based on our values rather than impulses. So really going back to what our values are in our life. So there are 4 generations of time management, and the best thinking for time management is really organizing and executing around our priorities in our lives. So he explains the 4 generations of time management, and there are several different theories, but the emerging method is rather than focusing on things in time, we start focusing on preserving and enhancing relationships and on accomplishing results. So a very famous thing in this book is the 4 quadrants. And this section talks about the quadrant 2 and its importance. So in the image you can see there's quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all our time are based on 2 factors, which is urgency and importance. So there are things that go in quadrant 1 that are urgent and important. They're pressing problems. However, if we keep on doing these things, we'll just be beating ourselves up with problems all day. However, spending too much time in quadrants 2 and 3, this just leads to irresponsible lives. Like we're not doing the urgent and important stuff, but we're doing the non-urgent, important things, and then the not important, urgent things as well. So we can't spend all our times there either. And then effective people, they stay out of quadrants 3 and 4, which are just not important things. They're trivial time wasters, and these effective people, they shrink down the time in quadrant 1 and really try to spend time in that quadrant 2, those really important things. So effective people are opportunity minded, not problem minded. And so then I would like you to think back on those questions you answered at the beginning of the chapter, and likely those things that you said would make a positive difference are action items that would fall in quadrant 2 that are really important but not urgent. One reason why we're not doing it right now is because they aren't urgent. So the author gave an example of him asking this question to employees in a store, and they all said trying to build relationships with the customers and other employees, And then he realized, and they realized, that after doing a survey, they found that they spent less than 5% of their time doing this. So it wasn't an urgent thing. They also had other urgent, important things to handle. But when they tried to flip that and really spend more time on that and focus on that, they really saw a large increase in their effectiveness of their business. As you try to spend more time in quadrant 2 on those activities, you'll realize you need to take time away from other activities, and this time should come from quadrant 3 and 4, those non-important items and activities. So as you spend time in quadrant 2, you'll actually shrink the amount of time you'll need in quadrant 1 on those urgent, important things, because quadrant 2 often has activities that have prevention and preparation activities that for things that will happen in quadrant 1. So that might be a little confusing, but as you start to understand the quadrants, you'll realize more and more that quadrant 2 really should be your focus. And as that expands, the other ones will shrink as you really value those things in quadrant 2. So you need to say yes to quadrant 2 activities and no to the other ones. This takes being really proactive. And the enemy of the enemy of best is often good. So sometimes we need to say yes to the best things rather than saying yes to the merely good ones. So it takes a little practice and commitment to say yes to the best and no to the merely good. And the best are those things that really focus on your values and principles. So really, as you'd focus on your personal mission statement and understand its values and your values, it'll make your decisions of what to say yes to and no to a little bit easier. You'll start to say yes to those things that are really valuable to your life. So quadrant 2 is really the heart of effective personal management. And for somebody that wants to organize their items into quadrant 2, there are 6 criteria. So coherence being the first one. There needs to be harmony between your vision and your mission, your goals, your roles, your priorities, and your plans. So there really needs to be a harmony. What you're doing is actually lining up with your vision. So refer to your personal mission statement as much as you can as you plan. Really think about those concepts. You also need balance. So success in one area cannot compensate for failure in another area of your life. Identify your roles and really try to balance out where you plan your time. Next one, quadrant 2 focus. So here he talks about how weekly planning is better than daily, just because it helps you to zoom out a little and focus on the big picture. And the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule in your priorities. A people's dimension. So focus on people, not just schedules. Think in terms of effectiveness and not just efficiency. Not just how can I get everything knocked out super quick, but really think about how can I help these people and how can I be effective at doing what I want to do. Flexible, be flexible. You are the master of your planning. Don't let your plan rule you. Find a way that works for you. It's going to be maybe a little different. And then portable, it's important to have your plan in arm's reach so you can constantly review it and be flexible, as it says. So things are going to change. So yeah, on the next section it talks about daily adapting. So yeah, in each day you're going to want to review. And so no matter where you are, it's great to have that plan near you and portable so that you can review it each morning. So as I was talking about, in quadrant 2, there are 4 key activities for organizing this. So first, identify your roles. Write down your key roles. You don't want to miss a big part of your life just because you forgot to write that down. Just really think about your roles, like if you're a father, a mother, a spouse, a manager, a service director. write down that role so that's where that balance comes in. Next, write down at least 2 goals associated with each role that you would like to complete that week. Then schedule set apart time to accomplish those goals in the week ahead. And as I mentioned, daily adapting. So sometimes in the morning you might realize, oh, I'm focusing a little too much on this role. I need to balance it out and give a little more time to this goal. So be willing to adapt. So the greater personal effectiveness comes as you plan your life around your values and roles. And as you do this, as you'll start to feel the power that comes from your principle-centered organization, and this will make a huge positive influence in your life. Perhaps the most important and also hardest part of this habit is living it. So that independent will, that's what you're going to need to live your principle-centered life. And your integrity is going to be challenged many times as decisions come up to decide between which direction your life is going to take. Are you going to make those choices that uphold your values, or are you going to go a different direction in your life? The author also talks several times about being effective with people and efficient with things. So, for example, when you're building a relationship with somebody, don't think about how you can be really quick with this meeting with somebody, but really think about how you can be effective with that person and really focus on the relationship rather than how fast you can go through it or how fast you can meet with them. So advances of the 4th generation, there are 5 ways that make this generation of self-management more advanced. The first being principle-centered. So this allows you to see your time in context of what is really important to you. Then conscience-directed, organize your life in harmony with your values. So the things you're doing are also in harmony with your values. Then defines your mission. This gives you direction and purpose on how you spend your time. Balance, you're identifying those roles in your life and setting goals for them. Then greater context, and by weekly planning, you'll be able to see that bigger picture rather than daily planning. Really try to zoom out and plan weekly, and then as the days go by, you're reviewing it daily. Delegation. So delegation is very important, and this will allow you to have more time in your life to do those things that are of higher value for you. So don't be afraid to delegate. And there are 2 different types of delegations. Gopher is like, hey, you go do this and do that for me. However, stewardship is what you're aiming for, and this is focused on results instead of the method. So this takes more time up front, but is definitely worth it in the end. And as you're working with this delegation, you'll need to set up 5 clear expectations. The desired result, guidelines of how they should go about doing it and what not to do, resources, what you provide them, accountability, you're going to check in on them, they're going to report to you, and consequences, good or bad consequences for doing this task. Trust is the highest form of human motivation. So as you trust someone with a task or opportunity to do something for you, then as you give them time and patience, they're going to be highly motivated to do this eventually rather than just being told to go do this or that. So effective delegation is perhaps the best indicator of effective management. So quadrant 2, every habit in this book falls into that quadrant. And if you do them, it'll make a tremendous positive difference in your life. And as the author always does, he ends this section with applications that you can do. So really think about an activity that you want to do that falls in quadrant 2 and do it. Write it down and just do it. Then identify how much time you spend in those other quadrants and see if you can reduce spending time on those non-important activities. Write down a list of responsibilities that you could delegate and see what it takes to start delegating them so you can take some of your time back to do those things that are important, that are more important to you. Organize your week as mentioned earlier in this chapter. Commit to organizing weekly and make sure you set a time to do that. And then create a tool that works for you that you can plan out your week. Thanks for listening.